what I consider a key to our success at that point was that we locked in on being okay with not having money, being okay with not having nice stuff, not having a fancy house, and not caring that anyone else in our age range was going and living any other kind of lifestyle. We didn't really set our sights on like, oh, I wish we had all this stuff. It was like we didn't care about that. We knew we didn't have extra money.
I remember when we lived in West Palm Beach, we were pretty much losing money every month. I think I was making $45,000 salary. I got really creative with how we got loans. Like when y'all hear me talk about using other people's money and getting creative, we took money from everywhere. I mean, we got HELOCs, we got private loans.
That's a very nice way of saying it. I was very creative. Okay.
Welcome back to the Finance Cowboy Show. I got a special guest today. My wife, who 100% does not want to be here. She's looking at me like she wants to throw me off a bridge. Mary Beth Sustar. Welcome to the show, Mary Beth.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How did
a pleasure.
Coerce you to get here? Because we were just sitting on the couch, and today's my content day. I usually shoot content on Wednesdays. And I had another subject I was going to cover, but I didn't want to shoot by myself. So I was like, come on a podcast with me. Let's just talk about our journey. And she's like, no. I'm like, please. It took a lot of, it's like pulling teeth, but here she is.
Whatever.
The one and only, the secret sauce behind all of our success, Mary Beth. All right, so here's the story how I tell it all the time on social media through the Finance Cowboy brand. Graduated in 2013. You graduated in 2014. But essentially, you didn't have any debt, but you married into a lot of debt. $65,000 in student loans. We had the gray truck that I paid $25,000 for in Jacksonville. Your wedding ring was $2,500. And then we had, I don't know, 10, 15K credit card. We went to it. This is how I remember it. Then I want you to tell how you actually remember it. So then we go to a church service in West Palm Beach. Dave Ramsey spoke. We didn't even know who he was. We buy his thing for $70. You say we only went to one of the classes, but at some point I listened to all of the steps because we got out of debt. So for 5 years, from 2013 to 2018, we just paid off debt, 2014 to 2018. Then we started buying real estate in 2018, bought a couple properties, then bought a lot of properties 2019, kept going. Here we are today. So that's how I remember it. How do you remember it?
I mean, that's about it. You're not lying. So that's
validated. Fact checker.
That's pretty much the story. I mean, Jaron for sure carries the weight of our finances. And so I didn't feel super like stressed or burdened, hugely burdened by like having a student loan or anything. It just was a normal thing. I felt like everybody had a student loan. Most people did. So I didn't think it was the end of the world that we were going to have to pay off your student loan. I think then when we did get a little bit of credit card debt, then it was like it put more pressure on it because we weren't bringing in a huge amount of money to be able to like throw a lot of extra money towards the debt. So then when that reality kind of hit, it was a little more nerve-wracking of like, okay, we actually need to do something about this instead of just letting it play its natural course. So that's when we said, okay, let's pursue the Dave Ramsey thing. We were also looking at buying a house around the time. So
glad we did.
It was like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Do we actually, it was like that moment where.
And that's a personal home, by the way, not an investment.
You're right. You're a real adult. And then you're like, wait a minute. I think I can figure out what to do with my life, but do I actually know? Okay, no. Let me go find help. And at that point, you don't really want to listen to your parents a lot. You'd rather go read a book or you'd rather go. And so Dave Ramsey is like the perfect solution for young couples who don't have all the answers, and you're not supposed to. You're 23, 24 years old. It's okay. Just go find somebody who knows and get on the right track. So that's when we started being intentional with our money. And yeah, we did that. And we also were at a place to where we didn't have a lot of extra money. So to me, I think a huge part of what I consider like a key to our success at that point, was that we locked in on being okay with not having money, being okay with not having nice stuff, being okay with not having a fancy house, and not caring that anyone else in our age range was going and living any other kind of lifestyle. We didn't really set our sights on like, oh, I wish we had all this stuff. It was like we didn't care about that. We knew we didn't have extra money, but that feeling of like, uh-oh, we're in a little bit over our heads and we don't really know what to do. We need to get a little bit of help. That feeling felt like the bigger priority than all our dreams and wishes of what cars we wanted to drive in the future and all that stuff.
And we would hear comments about our way of living. We still do, because we still don't have, I mean, we live in a really nice house now, but yeah, like you drive a Toyota Highlander 2019 with almost 100,000 miles. I drove 2019 F-150. It's 2024 at the time of this recording. I was just driving back from Columbia today. The engine light's on and that wrench light's on. When I press the gas, the turbos don't kick in, so I can't rev. So I'm on the interstate going up a hill trying to pass somebody, and I can't get around them because my car won't get up over 65. And so, like, people now know that we have success and we have money, and those close to us knew we were making money later in our journey, especially, and we still were living the frugal life. When we first started, we weren't making anything. But and we've heard a lot of comments throughout the years, but it's interesting. We're kind of
I'm thinking of one in particular that Jaren's side of the family has always driven at least nice cars. Like they have nice
stuff, and they take care of it.
They take care of their things. They don't like have tons of money, but they take care of their things. They have nice, clean cars. They keep them real nice. And they,
I know it.
I had to drive Jaren's grandma somewhere. She was riding with me. So we were taking the kids or going to lunch or something. I had to drive his grandma somewhere, and by the time we got back and dropped his grandma off at his parents' house where she was spending the weekend, and then the following day, we had a conversation with Jaren's dad, and his dad comes out, Jaren, I was thinking that maybe you need to get Mary Beth a nicer car. And we learned real quick. We said, oh, Mama must have had something to say about how nasty our car was.
Anytime they come to town, look, they're always trying to upgrade somebody's lifestyle. They do it. When she comes to town, my mom gets new floors, paints the whole house. My mom went to their house 2 months ago, came back with a brand new car.
Yeah.
Where they'll get you. And so, people started saying stuff after they left, and we're like, Rachel.
And Jan said, let me tell you what we're not doing.
Let me tell you what we're not buying is a car.
She don't need a nicer car. The kids just tear it up.
Yeah, it's like, bro, our stuff gets destroyed. We have 4 kids, 7 years and younger. We're like, we don't need nice cars. But there was a lot of sacrifice. I remember when we lived in West Palm Beach, we were pretty much losing money every month. I think I was making $45,000 salary or something. It was like something real. I'm pretty sure that was my salary when I first started pharmaceuticals. And
we were only there a couple months, so you didn't have opportunity to make bonuses.
Well, it's because we could only be there for a couple months because we were making that, but our rent was $1,800 before everything else. And so I remember we couldn't go out to eat, and we would go on Sundays, usually to this remember that place, the Southern Cooking.
Let's not.
We're not gonna dive all into it, but there was this Southern Cooking joint in
Jaren loved it.
West Palm Beach. That whatever.
The wait staff was very entertaining.
The staff was very entertaining. So that was like our big. Or we would go to any of you guys down in South Florida. We go to the Thirsty Turtle in Jupiter and eat their fish dip, which always always had revenge.
Jan was late for work.
I was late for work the next day after that one. But yeah, I think we did a great job of just being content with what we had. But where do you think the thought came? Because I don't remember the exact moment. People asked me, I don't know the answer, when we decided we wanted more than the average life. Where did that originate from? Why did we do that? Most people don't try to get out of debt. Most people pay the minimum on student loans, or they don't pay them at all. Most people keep racking up credit card debt. Most people stay in vehicle debt. We have no consumer debt whatsoever. None to this day. Where do you think that came from?
I would say we're both, in general, high achieving people. And I think I was definitely raised to look for opportunity and to think of bigger possibilities. So my dad was more so involved in real estate, and he wasn't doing it at like a huge level, but he would like take us to look at properties, and he just enjoyed that of like, what could this be? Or, oh, if we were able to get this, like, what would we do with it? So I think I was raised with that mentality of looking for opportunities, of thinking of my life outside of just like how normal and how much can we fit in. We also didn't really have a friend group at the time. So
do we now?
We hated that at the time. That was a huge disappointment.
Yes, it was hard because we had just both come out of college. Where I was on a baseball team, used to be in a locker room. You were on a team, and it's like, bro, we had friends. And
you come out of college,
you didn't have friends,
and then we moved away, and there was nobody.
Yes.
So when you don't have a lot of people giving you that pressure, I've never really thought about this, honestly, because we hated it at the time. It was so hard, especially for you. We didn't have anything to like live up to or fit in. We didn't fit in with anything because we were just by ourselves.
And we lived around a bunch of rednecks when we moved to Jacksonville. So that helped too. Yeah. It's like nobody's living nice. So I love them. But Jacksonville sucks. Everybody who lives in Jacksonville, I hate it. I love you. I hated where we lived in Jacksonville. Terrible, but you're right. We didn't have a close friend group.
When you have a group of friends, you're like, this is my social circle.
Boat or a new car or any of that. It was like,
yeah, you're like, what can I do to like keep secure in this group that I'm comfortable in? So yeah, I think like being so thrown into a place that felt uncomfortable, it's like, how much worse can it get by taking risks or doing things differently? How much worse can it get?
Yeah.
And so that's interesting to think of as a blessing. I know at the time, like literally at the time, I'm telling you, we have spent years going back to like remember how painful that was when we had no friends, when we like didn't know what we were doing. But like, it's interesting to see that could be a blessing.
Yes. You look back and you see things in your life that ended up helping you, but at the time, that's probably the most miserable 2.5 years of my life. You did better than I did, but you can grow where you're planted. Me, I was like, if I don't get out of this place and have some people to hang out with, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind.
Yeah, so our probably closest friends, like when we were in West Palm Beach, ended up being our realtor and her husband that would go on showings with us because we were looking to buy a house, because we knew the one thing we knew money-wise was we're wasting money on rent. We need to buy a house.
Yeah, we did. I remember that.
And so we were trying to buy a house and realized we could only afford stuff in like crime areas.
Yeah, and you kept going to take us to look at houses. She'd take us these houses like very high crime and the roof's falling off. This would be a great house, Jaron. Look what we could do with it. Like, yeah,
I wanted to live in a cute old house and fix it up.
Yeah, with all the Spanish tile and the mossy stuff going on. And I'm like,
HGTV, it's the dream home.
Where we get money to fix this up? And then do you have like guardrails to put over the windows so nobody breaks in? Crazy.
So yeah, we hung out with the realtor, and her husband would go on showings with us just because they were like older couple.
We actually worked with them on our first flip, which was an absolute disaster. We can get into that, or we cannot. But before that, we had a pretty darn good relationship with them, and they would help.
Yeah, they were super nice, and we were just the young couple that didn't know anything. So like sometimes that pairing can be like, oh, we would pick their brain, we'd ask them all, we just chat because they shared all kind of stuff about real estate.
Yeah.
So honestly, that was like another person in our lives that was investing in real estate, because she was a realtor, she was doing flips, and then he was they were like a second marriage or something. So he kind of had his own flips and stuff that he would do. So we just picked we asked them about all their stuff, and he was a storyteller. So he was telling us about all his experiences. So that was another person that was like, oh, they're doing it. They're normal. Yeah. They live in a normal part of town, and they're into real estate.
And I guarantee you they made so much money because they own rentals in South Florida back when you could buy houses for like $150,000. So kudos to them. So we go through, 2013 to 2018, and there's a ton of things we could tell during that time. Obviously, we get married and I start my first job, and you have your first job, and then we have a kid, so you start staying home, and then we have another kid. And I think we had 2 kids at the time. And we finally, during that 4 or 5 year span, I know there's 2 kids, 3 jobs, 3 different residences, and a bunch of debt we've paid off. And so now we're at this place where it's like, okay, we have increased our income. We've budgeted. We've decreased our expenses. We've got all of our debt paid off. What are we going to do now? And I would love to hear from your perspective what it was like for us getting into real estate in 2018. Because for me, I probably don't tell the whole story the whole time. Because I don't know if I remember it all.
Your first house? It was the one
Greenville.
with Gaston.
Gaston brought it to me. But one thing I remember we can dig into as well is like we would work for so many years to get out of debt. And then now it was like, oh, the way to buy real estate is through debt, which I'm now a huge believer of. But at the time, that was really, really hard for me. And she's making this face. Because I got really creative with how we got loans. Like when y'all hear me talk about using other people's money and getting creative, we took money from everywhere. I mean, we got HELOCs, we got private loans. That's a very nice
way of saying it. I was very creative. Okay.
This
man would spin webs. He's out there like a spider, just trying to connect. I would try to
tell her where all of our loans were coming from and how I was, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, we got
the
a
math
HELOC here. We've got another line of credit here on this house." Because it's technically paid off, but then there's a personal loan on it, and then we got a private loan coming in from here, and a hard money lender.
I don't know why I trusted you, but
it worked. I wasn't doing anything illegal, and everybody knew what I was doing.
No.
Maybe except for like one. I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to self-incriminate, but everybody for the most part knew what we were doing. We weren't doing any shady business.
It wasn't
nothing shady, but it
was just a lot of strings. It was like spaghetti junction.
Yes.
A lot of things are having to come together.
And we hadn't raised money before, or we haven't used different streams of money, and so it's like, bro, we had just got out all this debt. And now I'm like, oh, Gaston told me I need to buy as much real estate as I can. Well, we're going to have to borrow a lot of money to do that. So next thing you know, we're back in $500,000 worth of debt in 3 months from God knows where. And, we have 2 or 3 rentals by the end of 2018 and, off to the races then. But do you remember when we embarked on that first deal?
Yeah. Not the specifics of the deal as much. I would just speak to the time in our lives. Like we said, there have been people that just knowing that people who are not experts in real estate have invested in real estate and it's worked out because they've gotten the right information and they've taken the plunge were the 2 keys. And, they did it at a time where the deal was right and not like force themselves in at the incorrect time. Mm-hmm. But so the next person in the storyline, I mentioned your dad and I mentioned actually our realtor in West Palm Beach that we ended up not buying through, but they had a bunch of deals in real estate they were doing. And I remember one piece of advice that I'll share from Bill, was he said, when you make the most money, because he would like sell something and buy something else, sell something, buy something else, even his personal homes he was talking about. He's like, the real leap is really just when you like purchase your first one. And because when you're like putting things into the next deal, like for him and even for his personal home, it was like, it didn't matter. There wasn't like a huge, transition between like deals as far as like his personal home of buying. It was like when he got into that first home and then he turned that one over, whatever. But so the next person in the storyline that was involved in real estate and was successful that we could look up to was your friend Gaston. Mm-hmm. And so he's your best friend from high school, and y'all had kept in contact, and he lived in Greenville, which was about 30 minutes away from where we were in Anderson. And he was working, like finding deals, right? So he was finding.
Yes. So they were like, he started as a broker and just like as an agent, going to do commercial real estate. And then they got into this business model. It was almost like wholesaling, but it wasn't. He'd punch me in the face if I said he was a wholesaler. But they would go find, he was the bird dog. He was the lowest on the totem pole in their team. And his partner, Jake, would be like, hey, bro, I need you to go to these particular neighborhoods, knock on doors, send mailers, call them. And I want you to get as many people who will sell as possible. And let's get their properties under contract. And then what they would do, or see if they would sell it. Then what they would do is they would have an end buyer. So they have an investor like myself or somebody else that they would then bring to the deal. And then Jake and Gaston would broker the deal and get a commission as the agent. Well, as time goes on, they start keeping a lot of these properties in their portfolio, obviously, because that's where it happens, like the magic happens. And so Gaston was doing this. He's probably started doing this.
Buy his own deals.
Yeah, in 2014 or 2015. Well, while we're in Florida paying off debt and having kids and all, Gaston's telling me all about these deals he's doing. I'm getting this educational real estate without it being supposed to be a mentorship. It's just two buddies talking. And next thing you know, I mean, he's got millions of dollars worth of real estate. We're 27 years old by the time we moved back. And it's like, holy
And by
crap.
the way, he was living in like a quadplex.
She's about to hate on your house, Gaston. He was a quadplex in a rough area
house.
with like 4 roommates.
And they all in the floor. I mean, if you've ever heard a creaky floor, that's the creakiest floors I've ever heard in my life.
Oh,
and he's living in there in like a 1-room, whatever. Yeah. But did he own it?
Oh, he owned it.
He owned it.
He owned it.
He was living in one, and he was renting out the other 3. And then he's just gobbling up real estate because he's not married yet. So he's like, okay, this is my time where I don't care where I live. And it was fine where he lived. But it was perfect for that stage of life. It was perfect for that stage of life. When you don't have kids or whatever, you can live in 1-bedroom.
It's a great way to start. If you're not married. So he was
starting gobbling up deals, and that's when it became of interest to you because you were like, oh, I make more money than him probably.
Well, yeah, it was that.
As far as salary.
Yeah, for sure. Now,
your salary was higher.
He was way asset rich.
That's what it was. Your salary was higher.
Eventually.
He had all this in assets. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a minute, you make no money. How do you have all these assets? Yeah. So then it was like, wait a minute, what if I could figure out how to get in there and start doing that as well, gaining some assets? Because what do we have to our name? We've owned a house for 3 months, so...
No, it was, and what it did for me, I think, was it made it tangible. I think everybody wants to get into real estate. Like, it's a mythical subject almost. And so it took it from theory to, oh, okay, well, if Gaston can do it, I can do it. Like, Gaston's obviously a very smart guy. Mm-hmm. But I know him. He's been my best friend my entire life, so I'm going to go do this. And I think that's huge. Just a quick disclaimer is when you're putting yourself around folks who have already done or who are already where you want to go, it makes the journey a lot easier for you because every emotion you're going to feel, every obstacle you're going to go through, they've already been there. And so they're just like that guiding light. And so to have him on board, when we got to that point where I call him and I'm like, all right, dude, let's do this. And he was kind of pushing me the entire time. It was like a cheat code to have him walk us through that first deal in Greenville on Crosby Circle.
Yep. And you could run the deal by him, of course. Well, you all did it together,
brought me
actually, right?
No, I bought it. He didn't buy it. He didn't buy it with us. He just.
He brought it to you.
He brought it to me. He helped me.
Because you had started shopping for stuff, but you hadn't bought anything yet. And then he was like, okay, how about this one?
Yep. And he could have taken it himself. He could have given it to another investor. It was super nice of him to do that. And he brought the deal to me. He taught me how to analyze it. And he helped me get funding in place, helped me close it. I tried to back out. I was scared. He wouldn't let me. He helped me get a management in place after. Like
he had already owned a house on that street as well.
Yeah,
that was other
investors owned on that street, and so it was cool. And then I was able to leverage him moving forward because just because you've done one deal doesn't mean you know everything. Mm-hmm. So then I was going on and analyzing other deals after that, and for months, maybe even a year or more, like my analyzations weren't correct a lot of the times. I thought I was doing it right, and I would send him, "Hey man, how's this look?" And he's like, "That's not right." What? And so then it dialed in my skills so that then I could go out and eventually I didn't need him. I mean, I always, take any deals he sends my way, but we didn't have to have him because we knew how to generate leads now. We knew how to analyze deals. We knew how to fund creatively through all different types of assets that we had. And it was really cool.
New math. Jaren's been doing that new math since before it was cool.
Girl math. Or maybe that's boy math. But, and what I tell folks, what we are able to do with the Finance Cowboy brand is Gaston's not going to be a public figure he doesn't necessarily want to be. If he wants to be, he could be. But he's living his good life, not big on social media. But I am able to be to, millions of people on social media and then hundreds who we mentor personally, that Gaston. Because everybody doesn't have that in their friend group. I lucked out that he got into it and figured out. He wasn't even supposed to figure out how to do this. He was supposed to do commercial real estate. And so it's cool now to be able to see, all right, what he did for me, we're doing for hundreds of people. And there's new people coming in all the time. And I think that's what's most powerful about the Finance Cowboy brand.
I think that's really what you've discovered is it's the information's really important and the skills are very important and making sure your deal is correct. But somebody could pick that up in a pamphlet, but that's less likely to get someone to purchase their first rental than is the person on your team in your corner saying, you really can do it. Come on, I'll be there with you. I'll coach you through it. I'm pretty darn sure you're going to be okay. Giving you that like rah.
Yes.
And it's not fake. It's like built into truthful realities that we've known about real estate. It's like sometimes a book is not what you need. Sometimes that like person beside you guiding you along is what you need, is what's more likely to get you to actually take action on something.
Yep.
So that's what Gaston was for you, and that's what you do for people more than the information that you present.
Yes. Information, that's what I tell folks who come into our world is you work with us, you're going to know the information. Like the information, we know how to buy real estate. That's the easy part. Where you get your bang for your buck, whether you work with somebody like ourselves or you work with somebody locally, is exactly what Mary Beth said. It's like they're going to help you do it faster, easier, and safer. They're like the life raft who's there to help you along the journey. And you can't put a price on that. There's no way we'd be where we are today if we would try to do this by ourselves. No, absolutely no way. Would we still have had success? Sure, but there would have been a lot more failures and a lot more headaches on the journey. And
too, sometimes when you start out and you're interested in something, you'll find this expert that's at like level 100 successful in something, and you'll start listening to their podcast. You start reading their books. And they're so good at it that they'll speak of it in a way that feels more romantic because they actually maybe have become also a good storyteller while they've become an expert. And so they'll say stuff in a way that's like you like listening to them and you want to read their books or whatever, but then you might put the book down and you're like, I'm still not ready to buy something.
Yeah, we call those, this is a terrible term, and you're going to get on me for saying this. They're called information whores. Don't be an information whore. Like, get as much information as you can, but at some point, you got to stop reading the books. You got to stop reading the real estate books. You want to better your life, better your business. You got to stop reading the business books, self-help books, and you got to go do. There's no greater lessons that can be learned than through experience. It's no secret that if you're going to be successful in real estate investing, you have to be able to fund your deals. Whether you're doing the Burr method or whether you're fixing and flipping properties for a profit, you got to be able to get to the closing table with money, and you got to have money to rehab the property. And so I personally use Backflip Capital when I need money to get to the closing table and to rehab my properties. I'm in the middle of a flip right now, and I partner with Backflip. It has been the smoothest process of all time. I literally went on their app, applied for the loan. You get pre-approved in less than 48 hours. You can lock in funding in just a few seconds with the touch of a button. Funding takes less than 2 weeks. Hello, that gives you an advantage when you're making offers on properties. And I can't say enough about partnering with Backflip Capital. They're great folks with a fantastic product that everybody listening to this should check out for the next time you go to do a Burr deal or fix and flip property. So here's what I want you to do. Go down to the show notes of this show. I've put a link for Backflip Capital in those notes. All you have to do is click the link so that you can download their app and get your next deal funded with Backflip.
And the practical side of stuff, is actually for an overthinker, for somebody who's actually smart, for somebody who actually wants to improve their life and, you know, has goals for their life. The practical stuff and like, what do I do next? And what if this roadblock comes up? Like that area is what you would probably need more help in than the like, oh yeah, in my latest portfolio with these, you know, 1,000 rentals that now I have and I'm so successful and I do all this stuff. It's like, there's a lot of gaps in that information because you told a really good story and you made it sound great because you're so impressive. But when this person is trying to buy their first rental or their second or third or whatever, they need that more like practical information that's pertaining to their exact circumstance, not the 30 years down the road person who's, you know, mega successful in real estate that actually doesn't do any of the stuff anymore because they have assistants that are doing it for them.
Yep.
And a whole business that they're running and people are finding the deals for them and all this stuff. So actually finding that person who is still in the business of finding the deals and going through the process and doing it for themselves. And I think that's what you find in your group and even with your coaches that you have. It's like people are normal, everyday people that are doing this on the side and have learned how to do it by doing it.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's that's what we try to preach is the everyday average person. The method we teach is the W-2 Millionaire method, to where the person who has a job, who has a family, who's busy, who's coaching sports teams. We got a game tonight in 4 hours, 5 hours. Involved at church, you sing, I play the drums. We're involved in our community. It's so easy to say, oh, I can't do that because I'm too busy. And we're kind of here to say, yes, you can. Like, we have 4 kids under 7. We're about to get into homeschooling. We're doing all this other stuff. Like, you got to stop with the excuses.
And honestly, it's a little bit of a different niche than the person, even the guy who, let's say the people that are like full-time flippers, they're actually like in a little bit of a different niche because they have like infrastructure with that style of investing where like when you're doing it a little bit of a slower rate or you're doing your first one, there's things that you need to know that people that do 15 flips a year won't even remember that it's important to know because they're on like such a different like system. So even that is important to realize that like the things when you're doing one flip at a time or whatever the case may be, is a different style of investing than somebody who does it full time and does 100 a year.
You don't have to do it full time. Right. Those people are working full time in real estate. Most of you listening to this would not like working full time in real estate. It's a job like any other job. And so if you want to cold call nonstop, if you want to have to do a certain number of deals, assign a certain number of contracts, and make your active income through real estate, great, go try it. But there's a good chance that it's probably harder than the job you're currently at, and you're not going to get the benefits, most likely. Like, you're going to be a contracted employee. So what we teach is stay where you're at. Or if you hate your job, go find a different job, right? But then let's start buying rental properties, or let's start flipping to generate income, or let's do both while we have this steady income coming in. And then eventually we're going to reach a place to where we can decide what our days look like. And that's the goal. And it takes time. Anything worth having takes time, takes sacrifice, takes delayed gratification. But thinking that you have to do all these hundreds of deals per year, no. I mean, if you're the average person looking to change your life, you do 3, 4, 5 rentals a year, 2 flips a year, bro. I mean, you could generate an additional, 50 to 100K in income through flips, great cash flow through the rentals, and start building ridiculous equity, which is where real wealth is built. As you hold on to those rentals longer, they're going to continue to go up in value. Tenants are going to pay down your debt. You're going to get cash flow, tax benefits. And so it's definitely attainable to the everyday average person. I tell you guys, I'll send you to this link, and then we'll move on to the next part of the show. W2millionairemethod.com there's a masterclass I host that goes into depth on our process, like the actual tactical way that we buy real estate. There's tons of different bonuses you get in that. I give you all my calculators, so the same ones I use to analyze deals, private lender guide, hot markets to invest in, a map that shows all that. There's a ton of stuff that goes with it. So check that out, w2millionairemethod.com. And if you want to know more about like the exact strategy we use. But how important do you think the dynamic of husband and wife being on the same page is? So anytime I go and I do a live training, or I get on Instagram Live, or I check my DMs, I have questions all the time. Usually, I don't want to say usually from husbands, because I get some from wives too. And they're like, how do I get my spouse on board? They're just risk averse. They don't trust it. They're scared. What do you have to say? Because you were on the side of, hey, I'm just letting Jaron do this. I trust him to get it done. So it was very easy for me. I didn't have any pushback. It was amazing. You trusted me to do it. And I think that was helpful. I know that was helpful because it allowed me to go take chances freely, knowing you're like, I mean, you've told me before, you're like, okay, well, if it all crashes and we lose everything, we got family, we'll live at their house, and then we'll build again. It's like, that's a pretty good safety net there, even though I don't want to live with either of our parents ever again. I love them both.
Let's go into that a little bit more. Why is that, Jaron?
Because they're just such great people. I don't want to burden them.
Yeah.
I don't want to live with either of them. I love them so much. So I love them. Let's move on before we get in trouble.
Okay. The question was
the importance of the husband-wife dynamic, being on the same page.
I would say
speak to the spouse who's not on board, so that somebody can share this clip with their spouse.
I was thinking about, what is your goal for why do you want to get into real estate? And so if the goal is like financial freedom, if the goal is to build some sort of like something for your family to stand on, security, diversity of your portfolio, and I would hope that it would become like a family legacy as well, if that's your goal, why do you want that?
What's the why?
You want that because it's going to relieve a burden that you're currently feeling, which is, I have to keep making this money because we're spending it. We have to spend it to survive. And so if that is the goal, is I want this burden to be lessened. But then, in order to get to the goal of the burden is lessened, you, in the meantime, are adding so much pressure and extreme levels of risk to your plate. So like for us, we were a very young family with very young children.
Still are.
So when you're already like, young children in the home is a lot, and you're under stress because of like, you sleep less, you have to be on guard every minute. What are the kids doing? All that. And then you're going to add like, well, we have to do, this deal. And we're not going to have money for the grocery store anymore because we're going to, go into debt for this or whatever. How do you think your spouse, like, just think about it from a normal perspective? Like, how does that feel to them? Because especially if they're the person that is most involved in the day-to-day aspects of the family, and you're telling them that I want to add more pressure to our day-to-day. I want to add more pressure to right now. And they're the one feeling the burden of the day-to-day aspects of the household. Duh, they don't want to do it. But if you can, number one, start with, why are we doing this? And you can create a vision for, this is the family that I want to build. This is what we want our future to look like, retirement. We want to be spending time with our grandkids. We want to be whatever. In the future, we want to be secure. We want to be able to do what we want with our time. We want to be able to be more free. And you're really like leaning into that vision, and you're bringing your spouse to that vision, and they feel the peace of that aspect of it, and they feel the burden release. Because that was our dynamic, was like Jaron was feeling the burden of the finances of the family, And he's like, oh, I'm going to have to work
Literally
until
work forever.
I'm 70 and just to like make enough money. And I'm always going to feel like, what if something happened? You know, what if something happened? I'm stuck under that burden. And I'm at home with like 2 babies. And I'm like, this is a burden. Okay. Like, this is freaking hard. And so if your spouse is like not feeling it, then maybe you need to express. So Jaron would do that with me, and he would express that like the finances actually felt like a heavy weight to him. And I'm over here like doing the dishes and taking care of the toddlers, and I wasn't aware of that burden that put on you. So when you made me more aware of it, then I was like, oh, this is actually a problem for our family, and this is a problem for my spouse that I'm married to and one with. Okay, I need to at least like be aware of that for Jaron and like be in the conversation that when he wants to talk about it. And together we need to find solutions to this. So real estate became a solution for that burden that you were carrying. And so it brought us closer. It made you feel like I cared for you in being aware of that burden that was on you and being willing to risk something in our life in order to move forward and alleviate some of that pressure for the future and build security and all that stuff. But I would also say that if we would have said, okay, we're risking everything and we're going to sell our house and we're going to whatever so that we can, use this money for real estate so that in 20 years we'll be better. And then I'm over here like, where are my children going to live? And what if, all this stuff fails and then my young family is
stuck with our parents.
Whatever, stuck with our parents. Then me as the day-to-day person,
love you, Dad.
Right? As I'm doing the day-to-day stuff of the family. That would have been like, okay, you're trading my burden for yours. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't feel like loving, and it doesn't feel like we're moving towards something together. And it doesn't feel like our 2 goals and like visions are aligned. So I would say the key then is to point to the future vision, which is like, this is what we're building towards in our future. This is what we want our future to look like in our later years, whatever, in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And also say, okay, but we're not going to do anything so crazy that we destroy what we're trying to maintain right now, which is a secure home life for our family and children, because we also value this hugely. So when that other spouse that's a little more nervous to take a risk, when they can feel that you also value their concerns, then maybe they will be more willing. So we've also said this, like, remember back in the day, because I grew up in a family where you would never buy a soda at a restaurant. Like, it cost $1. Absolutely not. Water. When we go sit down at a restaurant.
And y'all went to a restaurant twice a year.
Yeah, for our birthday. That was it. And we would like eat at Wendy's and McDonald's on the dollar menu. Don't you dare order a deluxe.
Unless you're taking them to seafood and they can get fried shrimp. Now, if you take your parents for fried shrimp, they're down. Other than that, let's cook something at the house.
Yeah. So we always ate it at the house, all that. So we lived very tight in our family, and it was like, you never waste money on blah, blah, blah. But then like my dad invested very well and has done very well for himself, and his retirement is great. Okay. So in the meantime, it was like, we cannot buy a soda because it's a waste of money. But then, like, they have multiple homes. So it's like you could have afforded the freaking soda on your birthday. Okay? You could have got an ice cream.
So there's a balance.
So there
needs to be a balance.
So I grew up with that.
And I was on the other end.
Not balanced. Jaron was on the other end of the spectrum where it was like.
Now every night.
Yes.
Sodas.
Yeah, they could have whatever they
Christmases.
want. Yeah. Oh, they got way more stuff than we got like a new pair of
Shout out
tennis
to Mom
shoes.
for the Christmas. Now, Dad, thank you for the money. Mom, thank you for spending it. We got-
Yeah, like they had way better toys. They had way better like
I played travel baseball. God knows how much that cost.
went on really nice week-long vacations of just
shout
like
out to Ocean
chilling. That was not us. So we determined at a certain point in our relationship, we're like, we want to invest our money and we want to think of the future and we want to be spending wisely and we don't want to waste our money. But we're also not going to give such restrictions to our lifestyle that we feel like we're constantly telling ourselves like we can't enjoy anything. So there's this place in the middle where it's like we enjoy our life. And we've said before at the beginning, it's like we don't enjoy in excess. I enjoy my Toyota Highlander. I don't drive a junker, but it's like there's a lot of suburban moms at our kids' school, and I'm not a new suburban mom.
The amount of
but I love my car.
Of vehicles at our children's school.
We don't even go to a ritzy school.
No, we're not in. Yeah, we're just in like a little Christian school in a small town. Bro, they're driving $80,000 Suburbans and Tahoes, and I'm like, I know y'all ain't making as much. I know you ain't making. I know where we live. Y'all are here driving your yearly salary. Like, what are we doing? It's crazy. Anyway, It's not the best.
Yeah, so you choose what level is like you enjoy, can still get enjoyment out of without being over the top or like I have to have everything I want now. It has to be brand new. So anyways, we determined that early on was like we're going to not waste money on things that we don't think matter. Brand new cars we don't think matters.
We've always been more experienced than we have material.
But we're also not going to say like we can't go out to eat once a week because it's waste of money. So.
Twice a day now. She's like, where are you going? I'm going to Longhorn. She's like, it's 11:30 in the morning. I was like,
Whatever.
I know I need a ribeye. Like we were 10 years into our marriage. I couldn't do this for the first 5. So here we are living it up. But I think I think that's a good point. You got to have balance. And then, there is going to be some form of delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. Today we don't really have to delay much. We literally can buy, I won't say whatever we want,
but we don't.
No, we don't. But I'm just saying, like, there's stuff that we buy now that we wouldn't have bought before.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I spend money.
Sure.
You made fun of me because I got this $200 baseball cart to
Oh
put
my
baseballs in
gosh.
because I didn't want the buckets. And I bought a $4,000 Jeep to play with, and I bought a tractor, and I got a Ranger, and there's just stuff or you may order something online. You always be ordering something online.
What do I order?
I don't know.
You don't
Amazon,
know because it's nothing.
I don't look at it.
I don't order that much on Amazon.
She stays buying on it. Or
No, I don't.
here's what she does. She buys all these.
What do I buy?
I
buy
buy plants, and then she sets them in the garage.
No.
And she forgets. I mean, she plants 75%.
That was last
of them.
year.
So, maybe
The
next
new me.
year.
The new me.
The new me. Corey Smith's song coming out. Bro, she plants, I'll give her credit, 75% of them. But then the other 25% just wither away in my
I
garage.
was really
and I'm like
bad
trying to get
last
my
year.
Ranger out, or I'm trying to get the baseball stuff out, or I'm trying to back my
He's
Jeep
trying
out.
to get his Jeep out once a month.
Oh
that
my
he
gosh.
drives
I'd
one
get
time.
it's because it's been winter, but I get my Jeep out, and then there's all these dead plants behind it. And so I had to move 30 dead plants out from behind but our garden is amazing. We'll have to, maybe Elizabeth can slap a picture of that up on the screen here. But anyways, a lot of delayed gratification at the beginning, and I've had the opportunity to interview hundreds of millionaires, people who've been successful, and every one of them says the same thing. To have success in life, there's some form of delayed gratification, where my dad said you have to pay now so that you can play later, or you can play now, but you're going to have to pay later. And so we decided to pay early on, and it's allowed us to play to a degree now. I mean, we live in a very big house, got a lot of land, we don't hurt for anything, and it's amazing. But one thing I wanted to hit on when you were talking about the spouse, knowing their why and really trusting what the other spouse is saying, from a practical standpoint, you can't save your way to wealth. So once you decide we want more in life, we're looking to be able to choose what our days look like, go on trip, leave a legacy, build wealth. You can't do that by holding on to your money. So one of the hardest things to do is letting go of your hard-earned money, deploying it into something else. It's a very emotional thing to do, especially into real estate, because it's a more expensive asset than you hopping onto Vanguard and putting money into your 401k, because everybody can do a 401k. It's easy. But there's a reason it doesn't build wealth like real estate does, is because real estate's a little bit harder. There's more to it, and it's a bigger, dash of your money that has to go out. But you have to understand that how fast do you want to get to this life? If you want to get to that life at 60, 65, 70, keep throwing it in retirement. When you turn 60 years old, you can start pulling it then, or 65. Great. But if you're wanting it we're 32 right now, about to be 33 this year. So if you're wanting it in your 30s, if you're wanting it in your 40s, if you're wanting it in your 50s, you got to do something different. And the stat that everybody throws out, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they say 90% of millionaires own real estate. I would bet that it's probably true. I'm simple enough to look and say, okay, this particular asset has been making people ridiculously wealthy since the beginning of time. You go look at the beginning of time, reading the Bible, when God was giving people land, they were wealthy. You own land, you own houses, you get wealthy. And there's a statistic, 70% of U.S. citizens own a primary home, but only 7 own an investment property. Most people's wealth is held in their personal home. So they'll buy this personal home, then they build equity, and it's the most wealth they have. And it's just in that one asset. Most people don't have any wealth anywhere else. And so you would think we as humans would be smart enough to say, oh, I bought this primary home for $250,000. 7 years later, it's now worth $375,000. You think you would say, oh, shoot, that made me $125,000. Let me go do that 10 more times with other properties where there's going to be even more benefits, because not only are you getting the appreciation like you would on your personal home, but then tenants are actually paying off your mortgage for you. But only 7% of the United States population ends up doing that. And so for everybody listening to us today, I would encourage you, and you guys have heard me say this before, if you listen to this podcast, let's be part of the percent that helps close that gap. Let's take that 7% to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% of the United States population that not only has their personal home, but says, okay, wealth is built through this particular asset. We are trying to reach our goal. Whatever you and your spouse, if you have a spouse, or just you yourself say your goal is, you have to understand that real estate is simply just a tool to get you there. And so the greatest thing about it is it's proven itself, in my opinion, more and longer than any other asset. So why fool around? Stop trying to get lucky with crypto. Stop trying to get lucky with Bitcoin, with all the stuff. That's all speculative. I don't care if you think you know about it, you know nothing about it. Some random dude in China or somewhere, I don't even know who made it. They don't even know who made Bitcoin. And now people are saying it's the currency of the future. Guys, the currency of the future is what governments say the currency of the future is. But I can tell you this much, no matter what happens in that speculative stock, real estate, based on data, is going to continue to go up over the long run. If you look 20 years from now, the price of real estate compared to today, you're going to be punching yourself in the face because you didn't buy more of it. That's the one regret I tell her all the time, do I not, is we should have bought more in these particular areas.
I think it's hilarious because my dad would say the same thing, and he'd be like, oh, if I would have bought that. My dad bought that when it was $1,000 an acre. And now somebody, wants to pay $350. And it's like, well, guess what? The thing nobody tells you is you didn't have $1,000 at the time. And $1,000 was a lot of money at the time also. So, of course, you didn't buy it because you didn't have the money. We
don't like to think about not having money.
I would have bought.
But I should have made it happen.
I should have bought 7 more lots instead of the one. It's like, you didn't have the money,
Dude,
brother.
Seabrook Island just makes me mad. We bought our first property, our first beach house on Seabrook Island in I don't know if it was 18 or 19, probably 19, for $185,000. And today it's worth like $500,000. And we bought another one and made good money on it. We ended up selling it because somebody offered us a lot. But I'm like, why didn't I buy the whole island? Bro, what are we doing here? And now, like, homes
because we didn't have the money.
We can find the money. But we could have found the money. We didn't. Hindsight's 20/20. We're still doing A-okay. We've been smart with it. And it's been a fun journey. Any last words you want to leave with the listeners before we wrap this up? We got kids coming in here. Baby's about to wake up. We got to shut it down.
I don't think
wisdom right there. No, thank you. Y'all see why Mary Beth's the secret sauce. So And that's another key, is just marry the right person. Don't marry some doofus. Let's not make any bad mistakes on the front end. Hire slow, fire fast. But don't fire. Don't be going and getting divorced.
No one knows what you're talking about right now.
Talking reckless. Thank you for being on.
Hey, this is our last words of advice. Don't get divorced.
Yeah, try not to. That's we want to have good, lasting relationships and be financially prosperous, and among a lot of other things. So thank you guys for listening to the show today. This was a pleasure having my wife on, even though she really didn't want to. I thought she did fantastic.
I didn't know what you were going to provoke.
I didn't know what I was going to talk about either, but we rocked it. I really enjoyed it. So if you enjoyed this, like this. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on podcasts, leave us a review. Leave a 5-star review. Write a review. It helps us reach more people. And I appreciate you guys listening. And let's go out and buy some real estate.